So in this video, Rachel is going to talk about the second uh, uh, cause of male sexual malfunction.
I thought you were going to call it impotency.
Impotency, which is a little more diffuse. It's a psychoanalytic problem. So,
Well, if a man is arrested in his development, then a part of him is still a boy. And he would look at women as caregivers, both built to serve and gratify him, but also taboo for him to be man enough to take them, right? So it is like, is this my mom? And then there's the other part where a man kind of secretly knows he's a shit in some way. He's like, has the wrong intention towards a woman, especially a young or beautiful woman, and he secretly feels guilt or shame because he's truly not worthy, because he hasn't made himself, a good enough man.
So a man encounters a woman sexually, and then at some level in his consciousness, there's a conflict because of one possibility is the way he's been raised. He sees a woman in a certain way. Another possibility is he feels guilty about his own intentions, right?
Yeah. So that's why I tell young women to be careful about being too aggressive or assertive and closing the gap for a man too quickly. It's better to let him figure out, am I worthy? What's this going to cost? All that stuff. And then when he's ready, initiate the contact. Because if he doesn't, he's probably got a good reason. I scare some of my friends and I say, if you flirt with him across the room and he doesn't come over to you, maybe he's married, maybe he has HIV, maybe he has really bad intentions towards you. But if you go over there and make it too easy, you don't know.
But I think you've said that then two things can happen. That either there can be a sort of a disconnect that manifests physically. In other words, the man will lose an erection, or it can turn in to a sort of thinly disguised masturbatory experience, right?
Right. Well, yeah, especially if it's like, this is my mother. The problem with being in the masturbatory little boy, I'm going to gratify myself mode, you get the one who's supposed to gratify you, who's your mommy, into bed and naked, and suddenly your penis goes, I'm not going to fuck my mommy.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a psychological flip.
But can't it also happen that will be, that channel, this is my mommy, will be turned off? In other words, the guy will mentally disconnect, but he will manage to have intercourse with the person, but it will be like, it'll be
more gratification of himself.
Yeah, and he'll have X'd her out because of the unacceptable connotations that she.
And then she will experience where a guy is jerking himself inside her body. So she's just a more elaborate hand. And women feel that way. They feel like, there's nobody home, right? He's not present with me, in me here. There's a whole, it's a psychological landmine going on, and it's in between. It's the barrier between the two people actually meeting in real space and time, because he's got this huge psychological balloon and exploding in between them.
Yeah.
So there may be a connection. He may even sustain an erection, but he's not there. He's checked out.
Right.
And she feels it. And she will probably go, I'm not doing that again. So.
Yeah, I think a sensitive woman is able to detect when that kind of emotional disconnect has happened. originating in the man, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and also, one indicator, he'll go, oh, you like this? You want that? Can I do this? Can I do that? And she's like, ew. You want permission? I'm not your mom. It's a huge turnoff, you know.
Yeah, well, that brings up the whole idea of asking permission, which I guess when a man asks permission, part of that is he's making the sign of the cross to what he understands as feminism. He wants to do the right thing, and he wants to be PC in this sexual encounter.
He wants to avoid embarrassment, humiliation, and it has nothing to do with being PC, because what he can do, what's more loving as a man, is to figure out what he wants, say that up front, and then ask her, and also care about how she feels about it. That is true intimacy. Asking permission is not intimacy. True intimacy is I reveal, I expose what my desire is for you, what I want to do to you, how I want things to be, and then the gentleman in me wants to know how you feel about that, and how I can help you feel good about that, and how do you feel when I tell you these things? Like, that is interactive. May I please, mommy, is not intimate. That's neutralizing. So no, I know that there's a misunderstanding about what PC and feminine, being aware and respectful of the feminine, but that's great for creating boundaries between people in a workplace, but that's not great for getting into this gooey, intimate, interwoven place where bliss exists.
Well, one of my favorite sources for insight into this kind of material is in the book called, I don't know what it's called in French, but it translation Manhood by the anthropologist Michel Laris. And what he says at the beginning of the book, one of the first things in the book, is he introduces himself. He says, I'm impotent. I'm sexually impotent. He says, but let me explain what that means. He says, it doesn't mean that I'm physically incapable of having intercourse. It can happen, but what it does mean is that there's such a checklist of things that have to be checked off before it can happen that essentially it almost never happens, because these things are never going, everything has to be
it's OCD.
Yeah. And a lot of it is psychoanalytic, in the sense that he's got, the conflicts are based on things from his infantile life, and he's aware of that, and he says that if those triggers get pushed, then there's going to be the disconnect. So all these things, like taking off a plane, this has to be working, that has to be working, that has to be working, that has to work. This can't be working. This has to be turned off. This has to be turned, and functionally, so it almost never happens. So he says it can happen, but it almost never does, because all the checklists of my psyche need to be perfectly, before anything can happen.
So infantile is gratification. Now you're moving into a new developmental kind of coping management, which is preoccupation. Now you're in that, like, grade schooler, right? You're still not a man,
right?
So the jerking off is the guy who's just a baby. And then the verbal cognitive kid all the way till probably 10 is this kid. This is arrested development, where now I'm going to be trying to manage and orchestrate and control my surroundings by this kind of fixation.
Yeah.
It's all about trying to control, right? Or resist the bravery of being impacted by life. Right. So this is still hanging on to infancy. This is still hanging on to childhood. And then I think the third, what we're going to talk about later, is the arrested development around actual puberty.
Well, and I think that when I was thinking of sources for this material, I first thought of Thoreau, and then I also thought of Emerson, because I thought that the book that Emerson, probably his best known book called Self-Reliance, that I thought that would be more in the vein of Thoreau. But actually, when I look at Emerson, I see that a lot of it is completely the opposite. Emerson has a much more mature take on sexuality if we look at it from that point of view. For example, Emerson says, "Let us advance on chaos and the dark. Let us advance on chaos and the dark. Let us go into the vagina. Let us go into the vagina. Let's not be afraid of it." And I was surprised to find that in Emerson. Let us advance on chaos and the dark. And the vagina is chaos and the dark.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
But it's a pep talk.
It's a pep talk.
He's not talking about how it feels or the experience of it. He's still saying, "Hey, we can do this."
It's a pep talk. It's a pep talk. It's a pep talk. It's a completely different. It's a completely different construction than you find in Thoreau. Emerson is exhortatory. He's exhortatory. He exhorts the reader. Never lose an opportunity of seeing anything beautiful, for beauty is God's handwriting.
Mm-hmm. And this is now the 8-year-old who finds the girly magazines and becomes amazed.
Yes, but still.
But that's good.
Yes.
This is good.
I know.
This is good. And it's perfect for an 8-year-old, but it's not perfect for a man who's 30. Well,
I don't know. I think that never lose an opportunity of seeing anything beautiful, for beauty is God's handwriting. In my opinion, that means never or almost never miss an opportunity to have a sexual encounter with a woman, because there's nothing more beautiful than a woman having an orgasm. Never lose an opportunity of seeing anything beautiful. You want to see something beautiful? There it is. For beauty is God's handwriting. Schluss.
Well, that's great that you see that, because some people might interpret it a little bit more detached.
No.
But I like your interpretation better.
Okay.